Welcome, listeners, to Thru the Sightglass, a podcast that dives deep into the fascinating world of craft beer and celebrates the incredible individuals who shape its vibrant landscape. Join us on a journey where we explore the nuances of this amazing industry and the remarkable people who contribute to its richness and diversity. And today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Nick of Belleflower Brewing. Nick, thank you for making time for us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for inviting us. We're here in Portland, Maine. It's a
Totally.
beautiful day.
I know, right? We're
Day.
very lucky.
Yeah, it's great. So we just introduced you. Can you introduce yourself and your role here at Belleflower?
Totally, yeah. So my name is Nick. I'm one of the owners here, one of four. My role is different every day, I would say.
Many hats.
Yeah, I was just going to say a lot of brewery owners do a lot of different things. I would say that I primarily serve as like the president role in the like most ambiguous terms. Doing a lot of sales, a lot of working with our marketing team, managing the front of house and the experience there, and through the team, and working with Zach, who's one of the other owners, on the production plan and those kinds of things. I also work on the production team pretty frequently. A little bit of everything.
You have a grassroots experience.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah. I joke a lot that I'm like the janitor,
Yeah.
But I mean, like, aren't we all in the brewing industry?
Yeah.
It's all we do is clean.
In the best way.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
We had these very, I think, bravado, immaculate dreams of this is what it's going to be like. And you just find yourself a lot of like nitpicky cleaning details where you're like, this is what makes the beer good.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that, and Austin would always say, because I met him and he was, in the brewing industry and in it brewing and all this stuff, and he always was telling me, he was like, it's like 90% cleaning. And I was just like, what? And now that like I've been in it more and I see it, I'm like, I get it.
Yeah, and it never stops from, brewing the actual beer to like, it tastes funky coming out the tap. We're going to take the whole tap line apart.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
We're going to clean every little part.
Yeah. The tap is pouring really slow. Oh, it's because there's a huge hop slug behind the,
Exactly.
Right.
That's wild.
Well, we like to start off with your hometown. Where do you call home and where did you grow up?
Cool, yeah. So I'm from Connecticut. I call myself like a serial New Englander because I've lived or spent a significant amount of time in every single New England state except Vermont.
Oh, nice.
Vermont's my only blank space.
Only
at the
blank
moment.
space. Yeah.
But I grew up in Connecticut, a little town called Vernon. Very typical kid of the 80s, 90s. Like, huge free range. Parents had no idea where I was all day. And, when the street lights come on, that's like when you're supposed to be home, kind of upbringing.
I've been watching those Instagram
I
posts.
love it.
Right? They've been getting me nostalgic and like sad to be like, damn, we had it so good.
I know,
so
right?
Drinking out of the water hose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This tastes weird.
Yeah, it's like people didn't say shit online; they just said it to your face.
Right. Then I went to college in Boston. I went to Emerson College. I joke again. My life is a lot of jokes. Just realizing this now. I wonder what that says about me. Went to Emerson College in Boston, originally for radio production, which we're kind of doing right now.
Right.
You do have a good radio voice. By the way.
Thank you so much.
Good radio.
Hey, I did do some paid voiceover work while I was in college, so there you go.
Nice.
Can you discuss for who?
It was for very large advertising clients.
Okay.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Didn't get paid great, but whatever.
Yeah. Good experience.
Yeah, 100%. So I went to college in Boston, ended up working in Boston, working in the advertising industry. My joke about Emerson is that I got a art school engineering degree because I ended up becoming like kind of like a software developer.
Oh, interesting.
Working on, and I really liked working for advertising agencies because we always got like, cool stuff to work on, like different things, and so that was like a really exciting just like industry for me because I got to be like really creative and we never spent more than like 6 months on doing the same thing. Grew to be like a leader there as the company evolved. And then I can't remember what year it was, but I started like homebrewing at some point when we were living in Boston. And I think it was after the first batch of homebrew where I was like, I'm going to open a brewery.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Had you drank a lot of beer? Like, did your family have beer growing up? Like, what was kind of your intro into beer and then craft beer?
Yeah, that's also a funny story. So like my dad was like typical dad, like Coors Light kind of guy.
But the fizzy golden liquid.
Yeah, exactly. But like back then, it was like if you drink beer from a can, it sucks. Like,
Yeah.
You can't get good beer in a can. I have like a very specific memory of my dad like one time just being like, Nikki, you can't drink beer from a can. You got to get bottled beer or get it on draft. That's the only good way to drink it. And I was like, oh, okay, Dad.
Oh, he
good.
imparted some wisdom.
Yeah.
And like, you're opening your brewery, like, only no cans.
I am
only
not
glass.
doing bottles. Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, so that was like my intro, and then I try to remember like the first like craft beer that I had,
Yeah.
and I'm 90% sure it was a Lef Blonde.
Okay.
Which I'm pretty sure is owned by AB InBev now.
Probably.
Yeah.
But back then, I think it might have been independent. I can't
Yeah.
remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
It is definitely sub 21. Sorry,
Yeah.
Mom. Sorry.
Sorry. It's okay.
Yeah.
We all were.
Yeah,
I
right.
think
Well, Zach's story about like getting into beers. He was like 18 and he was like homebrewing beer in his like dorm.
yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We've
So-
had a couple of those where
Yeah.
it's not
He'd be like the fourth or fifth person.
it's not illegal for you to brew the wort, right? It's illegal
to
for the
pitch the
pitch the
yeast.
yeast.
Right,
Is
yeah,
where
exactly.
it's like
Fermentation.
a little illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was like I remember drinking that beer and being like, holy shit. Sorry.
That's what
Can I
sparked
cuss?
it?
Hopefully?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
was
mean,
like,
if it's
holy-
an alcohol.
Yeah. I
podcast,
gotcha. Yeah.
it's okay.
It's like, holy shit, this fucking tastes crazy. Like,
Mhm.
I can't believe, this doesn't just taste like Keystone Light or Bud Light or whatever.
Right.
And that was like a real entryway into like just fermentation in general. So that kind of like took off for me and like right then, truly.
Yeah.
And that getting my start like professionally, and really understanding like that it's very difficult. And I say this not to sound arrogant, but like I'm a smart guy, smart enough to know that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I knew how to make homebrew. I must have watched like videos and like read John Palmer's book like cover to cover like 4
Right.
times before I even tried first homebrew because I
Yeah.
didn't want to fuck up.
Yeah.
And
Were you did you have buddies that you were doing it with
No,
or
no,
anything?
just did it
on
by
your own?
myself. Yeah,
Gotcha. That's great self-awareness because I think it also alleviates a little bit of that like fear failure aspect.
Oh yeah.
When you're like, I don't know what I'm doing,
But I'm gonna do
I'm
it.
just gonna fucking try it and learn
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
it.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like how I when I decided I was going to open a brewery, that's like how I got into it. I was like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to find somebody who's opening a brewery, and I'm going to talk to him and see if I can go like help out.
Right.
Volunteer, work for free, work for knowledge, basically. And that's how I met Zach. And that was at Trillium Brewing Company, like before Trillium Brewing Company opened. So
Oh,
it, was,
wow.
Wow.
it ended up being obviously the owners, JC and Esther, Zach, this guy Justin, who's now the production manager at Schilling, this guy Adam, who owns Charlestown Fermentory. And that was pretty much it,
Wow.
right at first. It was the 4
That's
of
a
us.
pedigree right there.
Yeah,
that's
That's
wild.
insane.
And Zach was the director of brewing operations there, and then I came back full time later in 2016 to Trillium to be the director of development at the time, which meant like all their expansion projects,
Gotcha.
and then eventually became the vice president of supply chain, which is everything back of house.
Yeah.
That's huge. Okay,
Yeah.
so
You're in
amazing.
Boston.
I was about to say we're
Yeah.
about to rewind it back a
Yeah.
little
Yeah,
bit.
sorry, this is all. I just,
No,
like,
it's
got right
great.
into this
That's
story.
perfect.
This is
Love it.
perfect. This is how we roll.
Yeah.
So, quick question: do you
Yeah.
have any? Are your parents in the industry, or any siblings in the industry?
Nope, nobody's in the industry.
Okay, so this is solely your own inspiration, your own
Totally.
curiosity.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I think like the base level for it comes from like that thing I mentioned about like working in the advertising industry is like it's probably like some mental disorder or something like ADHD or something. But I get bored.
You want different projects.
Yeah, and I want to
Yeah.
I want to work on like cool new
Right.
stuff. That's why like the beer industry and especially like now it's so fun because we get to like experiment, we get to do new
Try.
stuff. And, like,
Oh, yeah.
It's always different.
yeah, every
Even
day
if
is
you do the
different.
same recipe,
Yeah, exactly.
things can still be different.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the temperature on that day is
Right.
different. The malts that you got might come from crop year 22 versus crop year
Right.
23, and
Yeah.
like, you need to make adjustments there. And so there's so many opportunities for creation and like the things that we do every day. That's what like
Yeah.
drives me.
Absolutely.
You
It's
so
sound
fucking
you're.
fun,
You're. I wish y'all could see the smile on his face right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
He is so pumped.
It's
and I
definitely
see
golden
it, the
retriever
passion.
energy.
Yeah.
And for how like the craft beer bubble and definitely it is craft beer is in a decline, but we live in the golden age of all these different products, craft maltsters. I mean,
Yeah.
every
Such cool
ingredient
things.
facet of beer, even down to the marketing and how you design, is at its like peak, and there's endless possibilities for that.
Still,
And so for how much doom and gloom, a lot of the reports, because I'm a data nerd with craft beer, so I read a lot of it, and I'm like, oh man, that sucks. But then I'm like, wait, we're in like this nuclear arms race with hop products. Like hop producers are now being like, we found a way to like extract just like certain oils to only to add and boost like certain flavors and aromas, and it's like they didn't have that even 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, so that's another thing I could talk a lot about, because in my brief stint of unemployment during the pandemic, I ended up working at a extremely high-end medical marijuana farm.
Nice.
As the director of operations, and part of my job was like building out the extraction lab there, and I was working with a PhD biochemist, and we're
that's
like
awesome.
we're like setting up the we're setting up the extraction machine, and I'm like, Chuck, like, how are we going to test this thing? Because we can't, like with flower, marijuana, there's like tight regulations on like how you can use that stuff and what the end product is. It's like, trying to run a test batch through an extraction machine is like not okay, know, because like what do you do with it at the end? You just have to throw it away or destroy it, and it's like all this wasted product. I was like, what if we just bought like a bunch of hops and we like tried to extract all the like oil from that?
Oh my god!
And he was like, yes, dude, let's do it.
Oh my god!
Love it.
You're a little chemist.
Yeah,
You're
for
like
real.
Tinkering
well, it's not
back
even
there.
like chemist. It's more like I have the idea and like the thing that I want to do, and like I know how to get there. Hopefully, I have the right tools, the right time to like do it.
Oh,
That's
that's
amazing.
awesome. Yeah, you can't do like an R&D like table session with pot.
Yeah.
No, you really cannot.
Even though for people like that's a great idea, I think the feedback might be a little slow.
Exactly. Not only that, but like, I mean, it's illegal.
Yeah,
you could not.
That's the other.
Can't do it.
The legal caveat.
The
legal caveat.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so wild. So, at Trillium, like, what did you start doing, and how did you work through that, and how long were you there?
And also, not aging or dating you, but what time frame? What year was this?
So when Zach and I met, it was 2012.
Okay.
This was just to like provide a little bit of history of Trillium. It was the third production brewery, like full production specific brewery, not like brew pub or anything, in the city of Boston.
Oh,
so
wow.
At the time, you had Sam Adams, you had Harpoon.
Oh my gosh! And then Trillium.
Trillium Brewing.
So two big corporate conglomerates.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Trillium.
How did you meet Zach?
So again, like going back to the like, I know enough to know that I don't know something. I was just Googling around one day, or like searching on the internet to like try to find like breweries that were opening in Massachusetts, and I found this. Man, I wish I could remember where I found the article, but it was some like reporter had written about this guy, Jean-Claude Tétrault, who was opening a brewery in Boston. And at the end of the article, it like had his email address, and
like,
I was like, huh, okay. So I just emailed this, like blind, no idea. So I just emailed him.
Best way.
Yeah, 100%, right? Just emailed JC, and I think I could probably find the email if I tried hard enough. But I said to him, hey man, love craft beer, super interested, would do anything like you want me to do, help out in any way that I can, as long as it fits in my like work schedule. Don't have to pay me, whatever. I'm just like, I just want to learn. I want to be a part of like, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Because like the other thing about JC is he was a prolific home brewer, and he had like a blog where he was documenting all his
very
stuff.
cool.
And so I found that too.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
that's awesome.
Started reading through it. I'm like, oh shit, this dude knows what the fuck is up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's so cool.
So how I met Zach was, I think it was like 6 months later, I finally get like an email back from JC. It was like a crazy amount of time. Like I had just basically forgotten.
Yeah.
And like the reason he didn't get back is because they just didn't have a space yet.
Yeah.
And so there was no work to do.
Yeah. I couldn't
So-
invite you to my garage.
Yeah,
So we'd be, like,
exactly.
hanging out.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a funny, like, it's weird, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this at all, but like there's these like weird pivot points in life. And like that week in particular was this like crazy pivot point for my life. Because I got my boss, so when I was working at the advertising agency, my boss was working in New York. I was working in Boston. And he was like, oh, I'm coming up to Boston, I got to talk to you. And I was like, oh man. And I thought like we're going to get laid off or whatever.
Yeah.
And he shows up, and it's like the weekend of like St. Patrick's Day or something.
Big
And-
weekend.
Yeah, big weekend. And so, my boss was like a big craft beer nerd too. So I was like, oh, that's cool, man. Like, I'll get us some tickets to Harpoon Fest because it's,
Yeah.
the day you'll be here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we're at Harpoon Fest, like drinking. I don't even remember, like whatever the Harpoon Oktoberfest was, and I just checked my phone and I had an email from JC. This is 2012, and it was like, hey, show up at this address at 6:00 in the morning and like bring like work gloves, and then at this point I'm like 4 or 5 beers deep, and my boss had come up to like basically tell me that he was quitting and I was getting his job, so I was getting this like huge promotion at work.
Gosh.
and like both of those things like happened like on the same day.
Yeah.
And so like the next morning, as hungover as I was, I showed up at 6, and Zach and like a bunch of other people were there to like help out, and then every Saturday, basically, same time, we all showed up and like just helped chip away at the production space and like building out what would be the first Trillium production space and like to-go sale. Because the first thing they did was just growler sales, like nothing else.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, couldn't even do tastings.
Yeah.
Like, couldn't pour samples for anyone. It had to be like, just trust us.
Yeah.
It's really good. You're gonna like it.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's wild.
Yeah. So it took
was
about
that a law in Boston, or just because
it was part of the regulations in Boston. Yeah, just because the space was, if you've ever like, this is the original Trillium space, so it was tiny, like the size of this room that we're sitting in right now, which is the tasting room for Belleflower. It was set up like so the retail area was like downstairs from the production space, and there was no way to put a bathroom in the lower retail area, so that's why they couldn't do tastings.
Gotcha.
So
That
there's
makes
just no
sense. Yeah.
spot to put a bathroom.
That's wild.
Yeah. So it was all just
That's
to-go
crazy.
sales. But it took us about a year to, with JC and like some contractors that he hired to like build the space out. And at the same time, he had worked out a deal with like a company around the corner called Greentown Labs, and he was using their loading dock space. And we were brewing, like Zach and I and a couple of the other guys were brewing like all the first batches of like all the Trillium beers that we know today.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Like Congress Street, 4 Point Pale Ale,
Yeah.
Pot and Kettle, all those.
Yeah.
That was actually, that Pot and Kettle was the first Trillium beer I ever had. It was the first day that we were there. End of the day, JC takes us into Greentown. He's like, yeah, I got to give you guys all a beer. Thank you so much for helping out. And he pours Pot and Kettle, which is at the time was like an oatmeal porter. Now it's more like an oatmeal stout. Shifted a little bit. And I drank it, and I thought, fuck, this dude is so fucking good.
You're like, I'm
beer.
so glad I'm
I'm
here.
like, Jesus, this is so fucking good. God damn it. I was just mad because like that was my favorite style. Like, it was really one of my
awesome.
favorite
That is
styles to
good.
make.
Yeah.
It was just so good. I'm like, fuck. Like I suck compared to this dude.
No,
Oh my gosh.
you're learning.
You're learning.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the whole point. It's
Yeah.
that's the potential you could reach and even surpass.
Well, that I don't. Yeah, I mean, again, would love. I mean, it's tough to beat Trillium at this point because everything they do is like so fucking good. But
Also just goes with time. I think that's the thing is like those people have gotten where they're at because they've continued to be themselves, and I think that also reflects values and reputation.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
it's then cemented.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
sometimes some of the best, like one of our favorite brews in Oregon is Upright Brewing,
Yep.
and they started in a basement in the Moda Center,
Yeah.
and they were always voted like Portland's best kept secret brewery, but they do a really good job with how they treat people,
Yeah.
the beer that they do, and kind of just being like, no, we started this dream to be us,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's why people love
Yeah.
them. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
they've been now there for I think probably 10 plus years.
yeah. That's super cool.
Not to ask like a spiritual question, were you like
Sure.
subconsciously manifesting when you had this big decision? Did you already, before the Oktoberfest, were you already thinking like, I know this is what I want to do, and kind of like putting it out there, almost like being like, if there's any opportunity, I'm going to take it?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
that was the whole thing is like,
You sent the email.
yeah, I sent the email like way before then, and I credit my mom with the entrepreneurial drive or whatever.
Scrappiness.
Yeah, exactly. She had owned a couple businesses when I was young, and like, when I was a kid, taking care of my sister in like the back room of the store, so that
Oh,
mom
nice.
could like run the store up front.
Right.
So it was always in me to like do something on my own.
Mhm.
But like I think the biggest thing for me is like in terms of like work and respect and things like that, like it always like drove me nuts when I was like putting all of my effort and creativity into something and then somebody else would take credit for it. It's like fuck, it's
Yeah.
like shit, I did all that shit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that was really a driver for me to start a business, basically,
Yeah.
because like then it's like this is my thing, I own it, for better or worse. If something bad happens, I'm gonna
Yeah.
own that too, But
But you have
But,
ownership.
Yeah, exactly, and ownership and agency. So it's
Yeah.
like I can make that decisions,
Right.
be the decider. And it sounds like a bad thing, right? But like it comes from a place of like true creativity and caring about what the end result is.
The passion. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're entrepreneurs, I would say. That's what it says on our Instagram.
There you go.
We're
We-
on this path for the
We're on
exact
this
same
path.
reason.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we have a passion for craft beer. We have
Totally.
a passion for the people in craft beer and the
Yeah, yeah.
community, and like sharing the stories and hoping that like people in that either in that community or people who are traveling to that community will
Right.
be inspired to go and show up and
Totally.
check it out. So
Yeah.
we're traveling across the U.S. to share as many stories as we can.
Well, thank you for that. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
glad
That's
that we're
awesome.
here.
We're
Yeah,
excited.
yeah.
Our
Thank
next
you.
step is to do like a traveling bottle shop. We literally have been
we
like
would
looking
love-
because from here it's like, what if we were able to like bring beer from like Colorado and Oregon and do like a pop up here for people
Yeah,
to
yeah,
try,
yeah.
have, and enjoy, and then literally just buy beer from here and then bounce back and do the same
Right,
thing
right, right.
there.
It's really tricky.
It is.
Yeah,
But-
there's a lot of laws. And
So many
The
laws.
liquor
There's so many
laws,
different
all
things.
the liquor laws.
But we love being able to share beer from across the U.S. I mean, people
totally.
love to like the bottle sharing and like trading that happened and still happens.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's just
Yeah.
so cool to like try different things from everywhere.
Oh, yeah,
So,
definitely.
Yeah.
Love that so much.
This industry is filled with a bunch of like passionate,
very passionate.
hardworking,
You have
dreaming
to be.
people.
Oh, definitely,
And I also
yeah.
think that's the generations we grew up in. Like I would say, like from '70s until like early thousands can be. I feel like kind of pushing it because they grew up with technology where there was like an abundance of creativity.
Right.
But the '70s to let's say 1999, you were kind of told or taught that like, hey, you work for somebody hard enough and show your ambition, you'll get paid for
Oh,
it
yeah,
out.
exactly. Yeah,
you were
yeah,
taught to be a good employee, like not a good boss. And I
Yeah.
think that's then a lot of us have been like, wait a second, like you're saying, you work really hard, someone takes all the
Yeah.
credit, and then you don't reap any of the rewards or any of the feeling, and
Right.
you spend all your life doing that. You're like,
Totally.
what am I doing wrong? So then you go to try to find it, and that's what I'm stoked for. Is now this
Yeah.
industry is just filled with that, and I think it's
Right.
fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, and speaking to like responsible ownership and stuff like that, I think that especially over the past couple of years, like things have gotten a lot better with the newer breweries that are opening.
Mhm.
That was one of the things that Zach and I, like the first things we decided when we were going to open the brewery was like, we will always, if somebody does not work in production and they want to like try it, we will
Yeah.
always try to train them and
Right.
make an effort to like bring people who aren't in the industry in from the outside, because that's how we got in. You
Right.
know? Like truly, we were
People gave you a
complete
chance.
outsiders, and we got like one chance,
Yeah.
Yep.
and we took it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What was that conversation between you and Zach of like, we need to do our own thing?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. It probably took it took 10 years. It really did, because in 2013, 2012 or whatever, when we first met, we had talked about opening a brewery back then too.
Yeah.
And had gone so far as to like look at space. And some of the
Yeah.
spaces that we looked at like became, very well-known, well-regarded brewery, like Jack's Abbey is a perfect example.
Yeah.
We looked at their first space
Yeah.
before they like
Opened.
even thought about it.
Were
And,
y'all homebrewing together? Did y'all?
Oh yeah,
or-
we did a couple batches of like stuff
Okay.
together, and I think we all had like pretty similar ideologies on like what we wanted out of beer, and obviously that stuff changes over
Right.
time. But
It has to.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh yeah, it has to. Like one of the funny things one funny story I like to tell, and actually I don't think I've ever told this on something that went public. So here we go.
Here we go.
breaking
First time.
Buckle in.
news. Breaking news. So we were in a homebrew club in Boston called the Boston Wort Processors. That was the
Love
name
that.
of the club. Yeah. And every couple of years, they would do like an Iron Brewer challenge, and so like it's like Iron Chef. So you get like a secret ingredient, and then you have to make a beer
Okay.
that
Oh,
highlights
very cool.
highlights the secret ingredient.
Yeah.
And so at the time, we were doing all this stuff at Trillium. We're crushing out all these hazy IPAs, and we're like, oh yeah, we can do this. Like it's like so arrogant, to
Right.
like think you can like just walk in and do it, whatever. But so we went into the contest with our buddy Justin, and the secret ingredient was Brett. And they had a bunch of different like Brett strains.
Yeah.
So it's like a bacteria,
Yeah.
fermenting bacteria. And we're like, oh my god, like
You're like easy.
no, it was like
Oh.
I can't believe that like they did this to us. 'Cause
No,
it's
yeah.
like Brett's like it takes a long time It takes a really long time to
aggressive
ferment
and
out.
infectious
Okay.
too.
Yeah, and it's very funky, and so you need to be like very
Sorry,
careful.
he's the expertise on
Yeah,
the.
yeah. No, it's all good.
When people talk about like
I've
funk,
heard of
barn,
Brett.
barn
Yeah.
like
Yes.
funk,
Yeah.
that's Brett.
Yeah.
Like that horse blanket.
Okay.
It's like hay, earthy,
So it's something
but
that you
also
probably had you
Well,
not worked a lot with it, or like
It's not even that. It's just like it's like the hardest thing to like
Hardest thing.
start with. You know,
Got it.
it's
Got
like
it.
because. So anyway, it was
yeah,
it
that's
was
quite a
Brett.
challenge for like your first challenge is.
Yeah, exactly. And they had enough Brett, and they had like different types of Brett. So there's like Brett B, Brett C. There's blends of the two, things like that. And so I'm like, we're sitting there, and we're like, okay, well, we've been making all this hoppy beer. We really like hoppy beer. Let's just make a hoppy beer. and so we decided on Brett C because like that is the most like fruit forward expressive of like all the
which would work with
all the
the
esters.
yeah, all the fruity esters, and so designed the recipe around that, and what we ended up making was like a Galaxy dry hopped Brett IPA, and then I think it was like 2 months later we had the tasting competition, and it was actually at Zach's house at the time in Jamaica Plain. And we won. We won the contest.
Oh
we,
my
we
gosh.
won. It was amazing.
That's amazing.
Oh,
And you know
congrats.
who else was in the club at the time?
Who?
Do you guys know Vince Terzi from Dissolver?
I know the
I
brewery
know
dissolver.
Dissolver. I don't
Okay,
know.
but he was
So we
there.
beat Vince
That's
in
There you
the
go.
Iron Brewer
awesome.
there you go,
competition.
Vince.
Yeah, there you go.
So maybe a rematch might be in the works.
You know, we joked about
Y'all
it because
should.
we
That would
did
be
a,
so fun.
We did a collab with them like 2 years ago, and I joked about it. I was like, yeah, remember that Iron Brewer thing? Like, yeah, we should do we'll do the rematch or whatever. The
Still got the
championship
belt
round.
in my house right
Yeah,
above the
yeah,
fireplace.
love that.
Those were fun times. But yeah, I mean, we definitely like homebrewed a little bit like back in the day. But
And you looked at some places.
yeah, so then
and-
couldn't find anything, and then my career like really started to take off a little bit, and my office in Boston closed, but the company that I was working for was like, we really want you to move to New York, and I was like, I'm not going to New York, but I'll like move to Connecticut because I have lived in Connecticut,
Yeah.
and that's when I was gonna. This is like 2013. And I was like, I'll just open the brewery in Connecticut, you know, because there's like not a lot of at the time there wasn't a lot of craft breweries in Connecticut, so I found a space. I like had stupidly bought all the equipment before I even had the space. So it was like sitting in a warehouse in Arizona, so I eventually found a space with like a landlord who was going to build the whole thing out for me, like pay for the build out, everything.
Oh, that's
Nice.
nice.
Yeah, and I was just going to bring the equipment in. And then one day my wife comes up to me and she's like, hey, so I really want to go to grad school, and I know you really want to do the brewery thing. She's like, but I'm gonna go to Sarah Lawrence in New York, and it's just gonna be 2 years. So I want you to you'll be able to focus on the brewery thing. I'll be able to focus on school. And like I'm like, God, we started our relationship long distance. I was like, I'm not doing it. Like I'm just not doing it again.
Gotcha.
I was like, if you really want to go to Sarah Lawrence, my job is in New York. Like we will go to New York. You know?
Yeah.
I see. So like the insinuation was like you do your dream in Connecticut.
Yeah.
She'll do grad school, and then
She'll
you guys
do her
would-
dream,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and then she'll come back or whatever, you know. I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to like do the long distance thing again, especially because we were married. You know, it's just like
Yeah, that's
ugh.
tough. No, that's
Yeah,
hard.
really
we live in
hard.
60 square feet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
And we've
can't
spent
imagine.
probably, 4+ years we've been in the van. And
Yeah.
I mean, like literally,
Every
like
single day.
even
Yeah.
when I'm on site at a brewery, she'd be inside working. Like,
Oh yeah,
So-
there
I
you go.
can't imagine. Yeah, for sure.
But
what'd you do?
So we went to New York, and I like kept going with my career. I was like pen to paper on the lease in Connecticut to like open the brewery, and just like, whoop, nope, didn't
Wow.
sign that. Told the guy was like super mad at me, but that's okay.
Sorry, friend.
Yeah, he ended up like opening a motorcycle, like a vintage motorcycle shop in the space that I was going
Yeah.
to rent at. But
Hey, there you go.
yeah, right. And I ended up getting like so good at I sold the brewing system that I had, and the guy that sold me the brewing system originally, he was like, man, you're really good at selling these systems. Like, if you sell a system for me, I'll give you a bonus on top of every system you sell.
So
the
you
guy-
started selling?
yeah, I think I
brewery
sold like 4 brew houses, something like
While
that.
you're doing your already full-time job.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you don't already have enough to focus
Oh
on.
yeah. I mean, that was like the easy part because back then it was like it was the gold rush of opening brewery.
Right.
So it's like
2013 or
yeah, it's around like 2013, 2014.
Okay,
somewhere in
gotcha.
there.
Yeah. People just saw that Ballast Point had sold for $1 billion and like,
yeah,
oh my god,
exactly.
this is easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, this is easy, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So you're in New York. Were you still like home brewing or like
I
going
wasn't-
back to
Yeah,
Chile?
I wasn't doing
anything?
so much, but I'd stayed in touch with JC a bunch. And, after Katie, by the way, I don't think I mentioned this, but Katie and Melissa is Zach's partner. Katie and Melissa own the brewery.
Okay.
They own the brewery, and Zach and I are minority owners. And we can talk about why that is in a minute. But
I was going to ask who the other two owners were. But,
yeah. It's like I have some pretty good stories
Yeah, I
about
love
like
it.
why that's important.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So it was around the end of 2016. I started getting like really burnt out in the advertising industry, and it was kind of going through like something similar to what the beer industry just went through, like the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like I was very disillusioned at that point. I was like, man, all these people that I was working for and that I trusted, like, they're pieces of shit, basically. I'm like, what the fuck? I'd never experienced that stuff because, hey, I'm a white man, and I have all the privilege in the fucking world. And so I just emailed JC one day, and I was like, hey, man, I would love to come back to work for you guys full time if you ever have anything available. And, he wrote me back, I don't know, a couple days later or something. It was like, actually, we're working on like expanding the brewery big time, and I need help. Like, I need somebody I trust to like help me like build these plans out. So I ended up going back full time at the end of 2016. And Zach was still working there full time, and basically like everything they've done since 2016 has been one of my projects. So like
You've had a hand in.
yeah, so like the Trillium Beer Garden on the Greenway, I pitched and sold that to the Rose Kennedy Greenway Association, which was crazy. The 500-seat Fort Point restaurant, built that from the ground up. That was insane. Obviously with JC and Esther and like the construction teams. The building they're in now that they call Forever Homes, 140,000 square foot, 20-acre campus. Bought that for them.
My gosh.
Yeah, it was like crazy stuff. Oh, the Fenway, that was a really cool spot too. They have like a little Jewel Box tap room
Gosh,
in the Fenway
wild.
neighborhood. Did that, and like all that experience, all that knowledge, like I was just like eating it up. I was like loving every second of it. 'Cause it's just like
I was just about to
I
ask,
learned
what was
so
your
much
drive for
stuff.
that?
Well, it was cool because like it scratched the itch that I had to be like a leader in this industry. Even if it was just like a small thing. I mean, small being like just Trillium.
Right.
It's not my thing. It was somebody else's thing.
Yeah.
But I could still like, I could still feel like I owned it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so
So much pride in it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Excitement, different projects like you.
right.
were
And
enjoying.
I was super proud of all the stuff we were doing. Like the fact that we put the first open air beer garden in Boston and
That's
figured
so
out how to
cool.
license it legally, even though
That's wild.
the licensing authorities didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those
That's
things
so
that
wild.
You walk so other people can run.
Yeah. And then immediately
it's
after
boldness.
that,
It's a bunch of other things. Like
Yeah,
you put
oh, yeah.
yourself at risk.
yeah. Since then, like a million other like open air beer gardens have opened in Massachusetts because they all use the same loophole. now.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
I think it's more formal at this point, but who knows?
I know. And now the state is probably loving all the alcohol tax. Like, oh shit, this is a
Yeah,
huge
They're like,
moneymaker.
thank you.
Yeah.
And I mean, that first summer at the Greenway, it was awesome. Like it was so cool. We were pouring through an insane amount of beer. And then it becomes like, the challenge becomes like, okay, how can we pour beer faster? Like, what do we need to do to like speed up these transactions?
There's always a problem to solve.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's like, again, like, that's me. I want to like figure that
The
stuff out.
engineering part of you that you said earlier, I see it now. The little like knack of like, or the
Yeah.
I think they call it the knack of like, I need to. Figure
Honestly,
this out.
the motto of engineers solve problems and then create more problems to solve is like so
Yeah.
true. Her family is full of engineers,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like, so her brother just shout out David just got his car running.
What's up, David?
Yeah,
David.
it had been like having issues for probably 6 to 9 months. He finally got it figured out, and once he got it figured out, it's running. It's like great, you get to like get it out of the garage. He's like, well, I think I figured out there's a few other things to fix.
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
were
yeah.
both just kind of like,
You're like, oh yeah, of course there's a
Engineer
few other
brain.
things.
take the win.
Yeah. That's so
always
funny.
need something to fix and problem solve.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, wow. So you're back at Trillium,
Yep.
2016.
Yep.
How long were you doing that at Trillium?
Yeah, so building out all these huge expansion
Yeah.
projects.
Yeah, so Zach and I were there together until probably 2018, I guess. And
Had Zach stayed on at Trillium this entire time since like 2012?
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay,
he was there
gotcha.
The whole time. Yeah, I mean, his first job at Trillium was the tap room manager.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, pretty funny.
That's awesome.
But
not a bad job.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, it's a good job.
I've been a tap room manager.
No, it's just it's funny because it's him, and you know he's like such a technical person, and I'm not gonna say he's bad at customer service because he's great, but it's just not his like strong suit.
Yeah,
you know,
not his forte, not his passion.
Exactly.
Exactly. A lot of brewery owners started as brewers and also pseudo taproom managers.
Oh yeah,
The second that they get the chance to leave, they're like, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Get me out of here.
We have enough capital to have somebody else to do the front-facing business.
Yeah.
So one day,
so then
you and Zach are just like,
well,
we're doing this.
Hold on,
Okay.
it gets even better from there.
Gosh.
So then
I should have buckled in a little bit more.
Yeah, right. So then the pandemic happens, right?
Yeah.
And upends the game basically. He was working at Lone Pine at the time as the director of brewing operations. He basically did what he did at Trillium again for Lone Pine.
Okay.
So took them, and they're our neighbors over here. So the listeners can't see, but I'm pointing down the street.
Yes.
Yeah.
He took them from their space on Anderson Street, which is like our neighbors here, and helped them build out their big production facility, which is in Gorham, and expanded them like massively. But yeah, I was still at Trillium that whole time, and then the pandemic happened, and unfortunately, I got laid off, which sucked because I felt like I'd put in so much work and trying to like make it all work.
Mm-hmm.
But no. I remember like JC sitting in my office, and I like came in one day, and I was like, "Oh, hey man, you don't need to say anything. It's fine. I'll go." And he was like, "No, I have to talk to you." And I'm like, "Okay." But it was really hard because like I was like, man, I was doing it. Like I really thought I was doing it, and so I took like maybe like 3. It was kind of nice, on reflection, I'm like so glad that it happened when it did, because my son, Tommy, he was 4 months old when I got laid off. And so like I got to spend like the next like 3 months just hanging out with him like every day, 100% of the time.
Pivotal.
Yeah, exactly. And it was cool too, because like, both of my kids were really little, and we would just like go on a walk the entire day. It was just like, let's just go for a walk all day. And I had the like double stroller, and I'm just like walking around.
That's
Thank
awesome.
God my wife had like a job, and she was able to work remotely, so we were okay. And she also just wanted us out of the house at that point, because she's like,
get out of here.
It's me time.
Yeah.
I'm on a call. Be quiet.
Right. Yeah. But then I think it was around. So I got laid off in like April, and it was around July, middle of July or something. I started getting like super antsy in the house, and so I got a job at the medical marijuana farm. Yeah. And it was like a month after working at the medical marijuana farm, and like I have to credit those guys. Like they are very, very good at what they do. They were incredible, honestly. And the reason I got hired there was because of all the Trillium experience. Like they really wanted to be like a high end, consumer packaged good brand.
Yeah.
And so that was my job, is to like make them that. And if you've ever known anyone who works like professionally and this is not like I don't mean to sound bad or anything about the industry, the cannabis industry. But basically, everybody who started the industry, they've never had a professional job before, ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah. They've been doing it illegally since they were 12 years old with their dad.
Yep.
And they don't know how to work around people. And so, quite frankly, the job was very easy, because it's just like I'm sitting there, I know all my inputs, and I can figure out like our crop yield and, so on and so forth, how many people I need to do, exactly what I need to do, because like I timed it, it's just like laying process over like this chaotic mess. Yes. And it was really easy, like for me, because that's like who I am. Yeah. And so I was like bored, basically, lack of a better term. Even though it was like highly compelling, working with like insanely smart people all the time, every day. Yeah. Getting really tired of telling Tim, hey Tim, you cannot say that to Taylor because you don't want to do your compliance work. Like you can't tell her to fuck off because you don't want to do your compliance work. You have to do the compliance work. Like, I'm sorry. And so I was just like sitting at lunch, like on my phone, and I was still a member of the Massachusetts Brewers Guild, and the executive director of the guild posted a phone number, and she's like, hey, there's a brewery for sale, call this number, I don't have any other info. So I'm on my lunch break, and I'm just like,
that's
okay.
cryptic.
Yeah.
I like posted it 2 minutes ago, hit on Facebook, hit the number, And the guy that picked up was like, how do you know that this brewery's for sale? And I was like, it's just like a Facebook post. And he's like, no one's supposed to know it's for sale. And I'm like, well, I know. Can you tell me a little bit about it? And he was like, well, yeah, it's this address in 66 Cove Street, Portland, Maine. And then, I said to him, I'm like, okay, well, can I come up on Saturday morning and look at it? This is like a Thursday afternoon.
Was it a turnkey kind of sale?
Yeah. So so the spot we're in now, on Cove Street in Portland, which is Belleflower now, used to be called Brewery Extrava. So they were a Belgian-focused brewery. Like all the beers they were making were Belgian styles.
Okay.
The equipment was anyway, fast forward. So like Saturday comes, I drive the 3 hours up from where I was living in Providence, and I walk in the door, and I walk into the back with the owners, and I'm like immediately, like I look at the brew house, and I know instantaneously, I'm like, yep, I can make this work. Like,
oh, nice.
Immediately.
Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I knew right away, just from like knowing the equipment, that we had a Trillium, and like how we could work the schedule and everything. And it was like that day, or like right before that day, I reached out to Zach and I was like, hey man, you want to open a brewery with me like now?
That was going to be my question. Be like, had you already talked to him, or you just were like, no, hit the go button? You're like, we need to do this.
Well, yeah. So I knew, I was still looking for opportunities for a brewery.
Yeah.
And I figured the pandemic would like open some doors. So I was like trying to pay a little bit more attention.
Pandemic, I think, was good natural selection. We talk about that. There was unfortunate but good natural selection that happened throughout the craft beer industry.
Yeah. So like as soon as I saw the spot, I texted him and I was like, hey man, like meet me at Rising Tide, which is another one of our neighbors down the street here. Meet me at Rising Tide for a beer. And so we sat there and I was like, I have an opportunity to like open a brewery, and I know I can do it, but I can't do it by myself. Like I need you. Like I need your help. And like, would you be into doing this with me now? Like during the pandemic.
And he was, where was he at again?
He was working at Lone Pine.
Okay, Lone Pine. So not too far away.
Not too far away. Well, he was at they have a big facility in Gorham.
Okay.
It's like their main production space now. But so we came down and we started talking, and the nice thing is like our families are very similar. So like his kids are 5 and 7 and my kids are 5 and 7.
Okay.
Same ages. And so we sat down and he was like, yep, I'll do it as long as Katie and Melissa are on board. And because like when we sat down and we thought about it, we're like, this is going to take up a lot of our time.
And your kids,
and Katie and Melissa are going to be the ones that are most directly affected by us not being around, not having like quote unquote normal jobs,
Yeah, because you're business owners. You're also doing trade craft. You're doing everything that's probably 16 to 19 hours a day on top of running a family.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So that leaves it all onto them.
Exactly, yeah. So like it was a huge priority for us to make sure that they were 100% in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, literally sitting at that table at Rising Tide, we said to each other, they need to be the ones to own the brewery.
Yeah.
Because like they need to dictate the rules, and like if it's not working, something needs to change. Like they're the ones that need to say.
Cool.
I love that.
Never heard of that.
That's great awareness.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, like it was the best decision we made aside from actually opening a brewery.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
And like the impact, you see it everywhere, even in this room right now that we're sitting in, right? So, if we hadn't given them agency, or like, and I'm not saying like we had to give them agency, but it's like, it was our idea, and we brought it to them and pitched it to them and had to sell it to them. And thankfully they came on board. But my wife Katie, her mom is an artist, a fine artist, and she's been a fine artist her entire life. She lives in Provincetown. She owned a gallery in Provincetown for a long time.
Oh, awesome. What type of medium?
She does everything. She does primarily she does sculpture now, but for a long time she did oil and watercolor.
Okay,
honestly,
cool.
I think she's an insanely talented oil painter, and I think one day like we're all going to look back and be like, holy shit, can't believe like some of the pieces I have hanging in my house right now.
Right.
Damn, awesome.
But so anyway, so Katie's been like in art and like the creative like field her entire life. That's what she went to Sarah Lawrence for, was creative writing.
Okay.
So she's like a writer by trade. And, I said to Katie, I'm like, I need help like with the art and like the visual style and like the narrative behind everything, because like, we haven't even like, we're how far in now? And like, we haven't even talked about like my favorite part of all of this.
We'll
just keep going.
Yeah.
And so, bringing Katie in and basically like giving her like total control over creative has been amazing. Look around the walls here.
Yeah.
We have rotating art, every 4 months. Right now we're doing a show with one of the studios in town. It's called Running with Scissors.
Great name.
Right? It's such a good name. Katie actually works there part-time.
Oh, nice.
Right now.
We'll tag them in a
Yeah, there you
post.
go. Yeah, so Running with Scissors, so they have like a bunch of different artists who like rent out little studio spaces in the space over there. And what this show is called is like a 6x6. So each artist like produces like a piece of whatever they do in like a 6x6 format.
Oh, nice.
So
Yeah,
we don't have any. We don't have any. Oh, we have one ceramicist up right now.
Gotcha.
But they all produce like a piece in their medium that fits in that format, and we hang them on the wall, and the artists have the opportunity to sell them here. We don't take any like commission or anything from the artists.
Oh,
It's
wonderful.
like, yeah.
I saw those block ones up there, and they were great, especially all the ones that are kind of like presidential vote
Oh
ones.
yeah, yeah.
I like that. And
yeah,
then the
so
farm
cool. Puffin
ones.
for president.
Yeah.
I love that. Ships for all.
Yeah.
Vote Seagull.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
so good. But yeah, so it's like keeping that stuff fresh, and then the other thing is like the label art and the storytelling that we have to do. So
it's beautiful.
I just turned around and I looked at our wall of cans. We're going into holiday season, so we have a ton of packaged beer available.
Yes.
We also, I've been
following
supremely
your
impressed
Instagram.
with your Instagram.
Oh, thank you.
The posting, that's one thing.
Yeah.
And it's not like a measure of the beer, but it is a good sign if somebody takes care and attention to
Right.
what they
Every
post
detail.
or
Yeah.
their website.
Exactly.
Then it feels good because we cold call everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, how did you hear about us or why are you reaching out? And it's like,
Right.
we literally just type in, best craft breweries or craft breweries in whatever state we're in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We get a list, and I look
Instagram,
through, and then I'm like, I think
websites.
these are the ones that we should hit, and we send out a cold call message.
Yeah,
so
super cool.
It definitely pays attention from work process to what you
Yeah.
post
Oh, yeah,
online.
yeah,
like it
yeah.
all translates.
Well, yeah, and it's like you put all this work and effort and energy and creativity into making the liquid,
Yeah.
and like if you're not like doing the rest of the job to
Right.
like present it in a meaningful way to people, then what does it matter?
Right.
Like why does it even matter?
I feel like
Yeah.
some of your marketing and ad agency work
Definitely, yeah,
came
yeah.
into that as well, like that partnership between
Oh, for sure.
you and Katie. I'm sure that is like
Yeah,
really
yeah.
key, so.
And it's funny too because we get like I'll say like arguments, but it's not like a real argument. It's more like difference of opinion on
Right.
things.
Heated discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Not even like heated, but it's like I'll come up with like a concept for a beer and a name and I'll pitch to her and she'll be like, yeah, but why does that matter? I'm like, well, it doesn't have to matter. She's like, no, it has to matter. It's like, it doesn't matter. So that's like kind of our process is like,
Oh, nice. Okay.
usually Zach or I will come up with like the base style. Actually, mostly for right now, it comes from me because I'm like looking at our portfolio and I'm like, okay, we have a gap here, we have a gap here.
Yeah.
We got to fit this into that. We need a new brand in this month and like a new style here, like those kinds of things. And then I'll go to Zach and I'll say like, okay, what do you want to make? And we need like this kind of thing right here. And he'll say, oh, we'll make like right today we just brewed a Scotch ale.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, right. Nobody makes a Scotch ale in
No,
that's
2024.
great.
Oh my gosh, I'm so,
That
I
means
love it.
now is the time.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Exactly.
we'll be around to probably drink it too.
Oh, there you go. Cool. But yeah, so it's like, so then on the back side of that, like we have like a whole Slack channel where anybody here can like put names in. And
Oh, give
I'll
input.
usually, yeah, I'll throw names in there and like people can will like them if they like them or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I have to like sell it to Katie, and if I can't sell it to Katie, it doesn't get made, or the name, or she changes the name, or something like that.
Yeah.
That's
And so everything has to have like a story, and it has to have like a reason why we make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so working with Katie on like a lot of the branding for the different kinds of beers we do, it's also like super cool because she's my wife. We get to have fun doing that stuff.
That's so fun.
And then switching over to Melissa, Zach's wife, Katie and Melissa, designed this space together. Picked out all the colors and like the kind of like the feel for it.
Yeah.
And again, that was like intentional because we wanted this place to feel welcoming to anybody. And the way it looked before before they like put their touches on it, it was very much like a dude zone, like
Yeah.
for lack of a better term.
How so?
It was like rusted metal on the wall. There was like a big metal cactus in the corner. And, like,
Oh, heck yeah.
it's just like
There
this-
wasn't like the nice warm wood with the like beautiful tile.
They did actually have the wood, but like
did?
there was so everywhere there's tile, there was like all this like really was like rugged looking metal. Like,
Okay.
Like for lack of a better term.
I like the detail of the like hexagons from
Yeah.
the middle to the outside.
Yeah,
I noticed that when
exactly.
I walked in, I was like, that's a really good detail.
Yeah.
Well,
Super cool.
were those previous effects, like the rusted metal and everything, was that from the previous brewery?
Yes.
Okay,
exactly.
gotcha.
Yeah, and their clientele was like, it's just different.
Yeah.
We went into this knowing that like women like to drink beer too, and they should have like a comfortable
do.
place.
Do you like to drink beer?
Yeah, exactly. And so, them putting their touches on everything was like instrumental in the look and feel of the spot, like from the beginning.
Yeah.
And originally when we opened, Melissa, she's a registered dietitian, so she's like guided our like. We don't really have like a super robust food program right now because we don't have a kitchen, but
Yeah.
she worked with all the food trucks and like got them to come in and like picked the ones that she thought would like fit best with like us. And she's also like does like all the like selecting like the types of snacks and the type of food that we have available.
Nice.
But originally she had started out as like our event person. She wanted to like hold like cool events in the space. And we're like, yeah, awesome, perfect. So like this is like one of the best stories, and like it crystallizes exactly why, because like all the stuff about art and stuff is obviously important, but like if you want to just like crystallize exactly easy for somebody to understand why this is so important, we do like leadership meetings every Friday morning. So we all sit down together and we talk about the week behind us, the week ahead, and it must have been like the last Friday in July or something, the first year we were open. And Melissa goes, hey guys, I am planning our Oktoberfest right now. It's going to be September 14th or whatever, same opening weekend as Oktoberfest in Munich. And we're going to have Jaju pierogi and like all this other stuff, like, all these like food vendors. And she's like, so what do you guys make for the beer? And she's like looking at us, and I go to Zach, and I'm like, oh shit. We fucking forgot to make an Oktoberfest. Shit, dude.
Dear Lord.
And so then it was like, yeah, we're working on a beer. We're
spitballing some ideas.
We're just gonna go in the back like right now, and and see what we could do.
Lily started graining in.
Yeah. No, I'm not even joking. I'm pretty sure that it was like after that meeting, we like sat down, like came up with the recipe that we wanted to make, and it was either that day or the next Monday, brewed it. Because it was already way too late. We had 8 weeks before. No, we might have only had 6 weeks. I can't remember.
And that's like
But
pushing a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was like super tight. Like we were like, is this going to be clean enough? Is it going to be clear enough in like 6 weeks?
Oh my gosh.
Who the fuck knows? You know?
Yeah.
But it turned out that we did make the beer. We made it really successfully, and actually, like we never have changed that recipe in the entire time we made it because it's like so good.
Oh,
We love
that's
it so much.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good story behind it.
Yeah,
That's
right.
Awesome.
And that one day, that Oktoberfest day, was like the highest sales we had the entire first year.
Oh my gosh.
Like entire first year and a half, actually. Because then
Amazing.
the next highest day was the next Oktoberfest.
Oh,
And it's just like one of those
yes.
things where it's like holy shit. Like if we didn't have Melissa sitting at the fucking table, like we would just be like, what the fuck are we even doing?
Yeah.
You know, like why are we doing this?
Right.
Yeah, Oktoberfest would have been 3 weeks out, and you've been like, oh, damn.
Fuck.
Oh,
Yeah.
we forgot.
We suck, dude. Like why? How did you fuck this up? You know, it's like not like that.
Just
but,
having the perspective. I think, like, as husband and wife sitting across the table from you, like, my strengths, his strengths, but then also our weaknesses, like, us knowing those as well and being able to, like, play into those.
Oh, right,
Like, that's so cool for the four of y'all to, like, not only be partners in your, like, personal life and separate, but, like, to come together and be like, I love that so much.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
And that can be like a really hard,
It can
but
be hard.
it's
yeah.
it can either, you can choose for it to be hard in a point of kind of like, I say, contention or weakness, or it can be a strength. Because usually with your partner, it's like, if you know that someone, I wouldn't say lack, but like has a weakness in something and you're able to provide the strength and support for that,
Right.
you have to also be aware sometimes where it's like, I don't do this to make you feel bad.
Right,
and
right,
that
right.
can always be hard to translate, especially in business too.
Oh, dude, yeah.
And so like that, I think that's almost, you guys made it, y'all as ownership group have made it doubly as hard for those that are involved with each other, because you add in this other layer where it's like, you have to talk business, but then if
Right.
you're also, emotionally involved as well,
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah.
adds another layer of complexity where you do have to put egos aside. You do have to listen and also be supportive of when it's like, you're right, like I wasn't thinking about that. Or you're right, like I don't have the capability to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for providing and stepping up.
Oh, all the time. I mean, that's like that's the number one skill is I've developed since doing this is like putting my ego and my feelings aside because like I'm not always right, you know? And I fully am accountable to that and aware of the fact that like I can't be right all the time, you know, and that's why we have.
And that's why you
have
the four of y'all. Yeah,
exactly.
plus your team and everything. Like it's such a beautiful thing.
I was going to ask, how's retention been for your team? And I asked this question because I've worked big and small breweries from less than 1,000 barrels upwards of 55,000 barrels.
Yep.
And especially on the bigger side, the attitude seems to be, well, we can just keep rehiring, retraining because we kind of have, they say, quote unquote, an endless supply of money to do so.
Sure, yeah.
As opposed to like looking at the value of what it means for somebody to give time, their own personal time, sacrificing their own dream to help build yours.
Totally.
What has been like, I'd say, pieces of advice or keys to success for you here at Belleflower for your staff?
That's a really, really great question. I think the first way I'll start off answering it is that, you know, to me, like none of this is possible without the team that we have, and you know, curating that is extremely difficult, and it's easy to make one hire that spoils the pot, for lack of a better term. And so, you know, in terms of like turnover, it's a funny thing. Like we've had 3 people quit in the 4 years that we've been open, and of the 3 people that have quit, one of them has come back, and she's working here right now, Nikki. And I love saying that because it's a point of pride. Because you know we have a really good working environment, and it's a challenge, right? Because like you know, everyone has their own individual priorities, and we've had a few team members who've come on and like expressed their priorities, and we've tried to like make it work, and maybe it didn't work with like what the business needed and what they needed as individuals. You know, I think about like someone who was on the production team at one point, and she quit because like we just weren't the right spot for her right now. You know. Yeah. And I remember she like cried when she told us, and it's like, it's okay, you know, like if you need to do something, like I'm not gonna like hold you back from your life and your dreams.
Yeah, your potential.
Yeah, exactly. And I say that to everybody here, you know, all the time. It's like, if you have something that, you know, you're really passionate about and I can't support you, or and I don't have the ability to support you here in like a meaningful way to not only yourself, but like, you know, fortunately, unfortunately, we are a business, and like everything we do has to like help everybody out, you know?
And you're also a small business,
right?
So it's like you only have so much that you can do. So I think I think just having that open communication, like I've been a manager, he's been the manager, team lead, all these things. Like I think both of us, this is the only business that we've owned, and it's just the 2 of us. So like the employees are just us. So
our other 2 employees are our 2 cats.
Yeah,
they don't do much of anything.
They do quality control. And
sure.
They're not very good at it.
Yeah,
but
they're just like laying there listening.
Yeah. And they don't like beer. So.
Okay, yeah.
But I think like the communication, I think being open, it sounds like y'all are open with the staff of like talking about things and working through stuff and like supporting of where they're at, laughing and be like, this is where our business is at, and would we love to be able to give that to you? Yes, but like maybe the business isn't where it needs to be for you to do that, and that's okay. Right. It doesn't mean that like either person is wrong or bad. It's just like you need to find your fit for your needs at this time. And unfortunately, we would love to be that fit, but we're not. Yeah. Which is fine.
Not always.
Yeah.
Like, so the flip side to that, and hopefully she is okay with me telling the story.
Otherwise, we can just cut it.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But like Kaylin, who is our marketing and events manager, she started here part-time in the tasting room. And, you know, she took the job because she had like another job that, I don't know, she's a very sociable person. She was working in like a marketing role. And so like I'm very, because of my like work in the advertising industry, like I'm very particular about like the way we present ourselves, the way we talk and speak publicly. And there's a lot of things that we like I don't want to talk about, you know, mostly around our like philanthropy work. But you know, she came to me one day and she was like, I really want to be the marketing person here. and like I really think I can do like a really, really good job. And I was like, okay, come up with a plan, pitch the plan to me, and then we can talk about it. And so she took like maybe a week or something and like came in with like a whole like layout of like what the job would entail, what she would do, what the deliverables would be, everything. And I took one look at it and said, okay, you're hired. And like
That's
literally
awesome.
literally like gave her the job, you know, on the spot. And, you know, again, I'm not lying. I'm very controlling in the way that we like talk and speak about things that we do. And so it took me a while to be comfortable, like giving up the reins to all that stuff, and like, you know, giving her like creative control over the things that she was doing. But you know, again, it was one of those moments where I'm like sitting back and I'm like realizing like the way to make this person powerful and impactful is to like give them the ability to be their creative self, right?
Trust them.
And trust it, yeah. Trust
That's what you wanted in your job.
Right, exactly, yeah. So then I gave it over,
Yeah.
right? And the result of that is, you know, we have a very excellent, in my opinion, very high quality and very excellent like marketing channels. You know, the way we talk to our customers and the things that we show them, they're meaningful because she puts the meaning into it, right?
Right.
And it's from
That's great.
you know, and she's never been a photographer, you know, and like I coached her on, because that was my minor in college. I was a photo minor. This is like coaching her on like a couple little things here and there and just saying like, just practice at it. And, you know, you're going to mess up a lot for a long time, but, you know, eventually you're not going to mess up anymore and it's just going to become second nature. And then your standards are going to go up and you're going to think, oh shit, my pictures fucking suck now. Like, what am I doing wrong? Which I think is like where she's at right now. She's like, man, I just got to take better pictures. And I'm like, Kaylin, this is amazing photos you took of this beer. You know,
Yeah.
It's really hard to be creative to like take pictures of beer
Oh my gosh.
like daily.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
Absolutely, especially with all the
Yes.
algorithm stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But no, you
1,000,000%.
literally just gave her basics, and it's like you can take from these basic skills, modify these tools to fit your personality and to fit
Right.
like your brand and design for how it translates to Belleflower Brewing.
That's really cool to
And
give
it's-
somebody a chance to
Well,
do
yeah.
that and help coach them along as well.
right? And you know, it's like it goes back to one of those core principles that I talked about initially, where Zach and I, you know, we had no idea what we were doing,
Yeah.
and somebody gave us a chance,
Yeah.
and so that's
what you're doing.
our objective, right?
Yeah.
And whether or not like we can do that for everyone is again up to the business,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you know, it's the same thing with like the whole production team. You know, I am deadly serious when I say to people that I think we have some of the best talent in Maine.
That's amazing.
Like there's 5 people on the production team, and I look at the 5 people on the production team and I say like, you know, the outliers would be Allagash, Maine Brewing Company, and Bissell Brothers
Yeah.
in terms of like talent. But they're
Right.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compared
They're
to like
They
compared
have the
to, like, who we are.
resources to have
Yeah,
a large
exactly.
pool.
There's a decent amount of breweries in not only in Maine but in this like block.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. There's I think excuse me. There's like 8 breweries in this
Yeah.
neighborhood right now.
You named several, and I'm like, we've been to all of those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
From my personal experience, I would rather take people at a small production facility that I think are intimate and have shared ambition and passion. And this is coming
Right.
from somebody who's worked in large corporate
Yeah.
production facilities.
Right.
I would rather take those 5 small people than a team of 20.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's what's hard is like when you have that degree of separation, especially for how big, like
Yeah,
how
yeah.
big the business is. Even like some of these businesses I have either worked for or just been closely tied to.
Yeah.
They are like leaders in the industry, but then you learn of like the inner workings of how things are structured and how that kind of divvies out to each employee.
Yeah.
And it's actually worse than if you were with a small brewery and you're like, well, wait a second, these are the people that we're told to like look up to, and it definitely gives like a falsehood to it, and that's
Oh, yeah,
why
yeah.
it's like you give people the tools and keys to. You're essentially saying like, I want you to build and chase your dream. Like
Right.
I don't want if you want to work here forever. That's
I love that,
great,
yeah.
but also
Awesome.
if you want to go chase and build your own thing, that's the same exact feeling as I have if you want to work here forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. Like one of our early production employees, she was always saying like, I want to open a bar, I want to open my own brewery, and I was like, great, I'll teach you how to do that.
Yeah.
Like
And I
straight
think
from the
that's-
start.
I think that's huge because I think like I worked a lot of corporate and he's worked, you know, like you don't get that very often.
Right,
I
yeah.
think there's people gave you a chance and now you're wanting to like pay it forward. And
Yeah.
I think that's so huge, especially in this industry. I feel like there can be people who are closed-lipped about things, and I
Oh, yeah.
think what we've noticed definitely in the Maine beer scene. We've only done a few podcasts here in Maine, but even just like visiting breweries, like people in this industry in Maine specifically really resemble what we feel like craft beer was essentially, like that community, that wanting to help, wanting to be a part of, wanting to like connect and like all that stuff. So I think, I don't know, it's really cool to not only see it whenever we just, because we go into breweries and people don't, obviously we're not big time or anything, but like we go in and we like talk to people and we're just regular customers, and then we get to come in and do podcasts with people as well. And so I think being able to feel it and see it behind the scenes as well, like I think that's huge for us, and a reason why we'll probably be in Maine for a little while to do some more podcasts and like hang out.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of cool breweries.
There's
too,
a lot of really cool breweries.
Well, we always I wouldn't say we always forget, because this is our first time spending a lot of time here.
Yeah.
But it's similar to the West Coast, where you can drive 4 hours and hit like 4 different states.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so we've been like
It's really
talking
nice.
with Lamplighter, Kushnock,
cool.
a bunch of other breweries that span down
Yep.
to Massachusetts and up towards.
And it's only a few hour drives, you know, I grew up in
Yeah.
Texas
Yeah,
where like you can drive like
forever.
You can
forever.
drive 16 hours and still be in Texas.
Insane
Oh, yeah.
state.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. I think we were like a little bit nervous about being in this area, but we are so glad that we're in the Portland area and be able to
cool.
experience
Yeah.
not only Portland, Maine, and the beer scene, but also the New England
Yeah.
craft beer industry as well.
Oh yeah,
So
Yeah.
there's so much cool stuff happening.
I want to go back.
Definitely.
So you and Zach were like, okay, we're going to do this. We
Yep.
found the place. We found the thing.
Yep.
Bringing the wives in. We're going to figure it out. How did you come up with the name?
Ooh, okay.
What does it mean?
Yeah, it's
Because
fun.
I know it has a meaning.
Yeah, definitely. Again, so like naming stuff is very
It's
hard.
hard.
I'm getting close to the mic on this one because
It's
it's
okay.
very hard.
Do it.
No, it's really hard to come up with like unique names and like what that name means, you know, because it's like it's easy just to like say anything, right? And whether or not like that sparks something in someone, or whether or not that has any kind of like deeper connection to like someone's like inner self, you know, subconscious. So the way we did it was we did a few rounds of I'll call them like big idea bucket things. One of them was like we bought like I want to say like 30 different IPAs from different breweries, and you know, tried tasting them all in one night, which was like a huge mistake, because by like number 25 you're like, I don't even know anymore. Yeah.
They're like babysitters. Like,
Yeah. Hey kids, put the Nintendo down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then one of the other nights was like coming up with you know, the name of the brewery, and you know, all of us like populated like a really long like Google Doc.
Yep.
And we just sat down and we just read through all of them and started like filtering out like, you know, if it was like a no from 2 people, then it was just off the list.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I you know, I looked for the list recently because I thought it was funny, and we were trying to name something, and I was just like looking for the name of you know, all the names we came up with.
Yeah.
I think it was like, must have been like 150 like
Yeah.
names, and all over the place. You know,
Right.
totally different stuff.
But then you also have to check to make sure there's not businesses already registered
Right.
Yes.
with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other challenge is like, you know, you don't want to step on anybody's trademark, and like if anybody has like a name, and I can't even tell you how many times like I've come up with like a concept for something, and then like been like, oh man, I should have looked that up before,
Yeah.
and then I look it up and I'm like, ugh,
Sorry.
can't
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah.
Ah. But you know, so we did like one round of that, and nothing was sticking like at all, and I was getting pretty paranoid about
Having a name.
having a name, yeah, because like, you know, it's part of the
Ethos.
origin of
Yeah.
the story and like where that comes from. And I had so my family is, like I said, I'm a serial New Englander. My family's been in New England for a really, really long time, like a really long time. One of the jokes that people make about New Englanders is that like, oh yeah, so and so's grandpa was on the Mayflower or whatever.
You all were.
Yeah, exactly. Like everybody's grandpa was on the Mayflower. Grandma was on the Mayflower. But the reality is that my family was here like for a really, really long time, like a long time.
Okay.
Like my grandmother was you know, she was like the family genealogist, and she like traced us back to like England and whatever, you know,
Yeah.
and in Ireland. And so we have this house or this property that's been in our family for almost 200 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's been like the family homestead, that entire time. Like my 6th great grandfather, he built it with his own 2 hands. Like the original building that was on the property is still there to this day.
Is it a historic site?
No. I mean,
Okay.
it's like it's like some scrub ass like New Hampshire farm at this
Okay.
point. But
It should still be historic.
That's insane.
yeah, but I mean, like the story is like it's because it's not like a fancy house or anything. It's like just like an old, very old like New England.
Go to Tennessee and see the houses that they make as historic houses.
Sure, yeah. But I mean, like it's
Have
one
you
of those.
seen the Alamo? Like,
Yeah,
come
yeah.
on.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, even the Alamo has like fancy decorations and stuff. But
Tiniest thing you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yeah.
If you've ever walked to it, you're like,
this is it.
I'm like, your tap room's
I'm
bigger.
supposed to remember this?
Your back.
Yeah,
As a
exactly.
Texan, that's all I heard my entire life. Y'all's tap room is bigger than the Alamo.
Well, there you
Like,
go.
I mean, come on.
But yeah, so
Sorry, Texas. I love you.
Yeah, it's all good.
Whatever.
Oh yeah, I'm not Texan, so what do I care?
Yeah.
But yeah, so my great grandmother was like the last generation of kids to grow up there, and I have like some of my earliest memories are with her, like sitting in my grandmother's house with my great grandmother, and she coined the name for the farm, the Belleflower Farm, because when she was growing up, her dad, great granddad, Ross, no, it wasn't Ross Senior. It was whatever. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. There's so many like family members.
Yeah.
He planted like a little apple orchard because it's like it was a homestead, and how do you feed the kids?
Yeah,
Like, gotta grow it or
Grow your own
like
food.
or sell it or whatever. So he planted like a little apple orchard. There was 6 trees in total, and 5 of them are still standing. One of them's like on the way out.
Wow, but hundreds of years old.
Yeah, really old. And they're totally overgrown now, and they produce apples maybe every like 4 years.
Gotcha.
And like they're still good. Like you can eat them. Like I've taken them off the tree, and they're like super little tiny apples. But the trees are so huge that they just don't produce fruit. So anyway, she and the other kids had named one of the trees the Belleflower tree, and the name just kind of stuck at that point. Yeah. And then somebody hit the Belleflower tree with a car.
Oh my gosh.
or a tractor.
Was it somebody in your family?
Who
Cannot
knows
say.
at this point? Who knows?
They were drinking some craft beer,
Yeah.
for the first time.
Right, yeah. Who knows? But mercifully, somebody had the foresight to like save the trunk of the tree. So we literally still have the trunk of the tree, the Belleflower tree. It's in the barn, just
my
like
gosh.
stuck up against the wall. Like it's not like a support or anything. It's just there
just
still.
Oh, no, almost like when people hunt and they post.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Gotcha.
exactly. Yeah, so the tree is still there.
That's a good way to pay homage.
Yeah, right. So the name just kind of stuck from there, and one of the other things, like her generation, her and the story that we like to tell is like she specifically picked it, is that like they started putting like these Dutch hexes up on the barn. So if you know anything about like folk art and Dutch folk art, Dutch farming art, they make these like symbols that they paint on the barns that are traditionally circles, but sometimes they look like squares because they'll paint them like quilts, like sections of quilt.
Oh my God, I've seen those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're pretty popular up here too. But most of the style in Maine is like they'll paint the quilt style. So we call those barn quilts.
Yes.
Oh, okay, very cool.
But the Dutch hexes or the barn hexes, or we call them or farm hexes, we call them barn hexes because that was like a name that was available.
Uh-huh.
They're just symbols that have like meaning to the farmer that painted them on the wall.
Yeah.
So like so of course I'm wearing a Schilling Oktoberfest 2024 shirt right now. Just giving that up.
Yeah.
No one can see me.
We can.
But I give it up anyway.
We'll take a photo.
We'll take
Yeah,
a
cool.
photo.
but the a lot of the like iconography that we use and a lot of the branding comes from the inspiration of that like folk art style, that Dutch hex
Do
or
you
that
see
farm
that?
hex.
Like is that similar?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that's like a pretty traditional style, the one that's on the front
Yeah.
door.
Okay.
And then if you look at the tin tacker up there in the
Yeah, in
window,
the middle.
the one on the top of the barn, that's
Mhm.
like a super traditional barn hex that means like love in the family.
Very
So this is a
cool.
place of love, and so that's what we use for our like primary logo.
Yeah.
The points with like the hop cones sticking on the side of it. It's like, this is a place of love and beer.
Oh, that's so awesome. I never knew that. I always thought it was like a personal coat of arms for farmers.
Yeah,
but now
yeah.
it makes sense. It's
It
like
kind of is.
it's like a
little
coat of
bit,
arms,
yeah.
but also like business as well, being like this is who
Yeah,
lives
yeah.
here, the family, and what they represent.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
there one on the?
Yeah, so we've had a few on the house. So the one that was there like 24 years ago, so actually 22 years ago, the roof of the barn collapsed. It was a major disaster. It was a big, huge disaster, and we lost the hex that was there before.
Oh damn!
That
Sorry.
one is very similar to the one that we use as our like main logo. The one that's there now is what's called the double distal fink. So it's the finch and the thistle. And it's two finch birds holding thistle branches. And, and they're just
very
like
cool.
they face each other.
Yeah.
So that's what's on the barn right now.
That's so wild. I love it.
Yeah. And like this one that we kind of the one that's on the front door, we
Yeah.
kind of like made that as our own. And to
Yeah.
us, that one means prosperity.
Oh.
So that's why we put it on all the doors and the side of the building, because we're like, this is our
Aw.
Oh,
like,
nice.
our place of
Oh, that's
prosperity.
so sweet. I like that thing too, where it kind of is. It's like placing wards, but you're like protecting the space with your
Yeah.
energy and what you want.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's a lot of like magical thinking and stuff like that, and a lot of, I don't want to say it's like spooky energy, but like when I put intention out into
Yes.
the world, like I'm like
absolutely.
I'm trying to
It's
manifest
your
that intention.
yeah, it's your energy. The energy. I mean, you feel it when you come in. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, this was even before we had, I think, reached out to y'all.
Yeah.
To do a podcast. Like when we came in, it did. I don't know. I think maybe me being from the South, like I think seeing that it did remind me of of like a coat of arms, or like we have a family crest. I'm Irish, and like coming in, it
Right.
kind of felt like that. And it
exactly.
I don't know. You feel the warmth in here when you come in as well.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's just like
Yeah.
very intentional. You can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel the meaning when you come into this
Right,
place.
exactly. So like all of that said, like that is kind of like what crystallized the name, I think, for everybody. And when I presented it, I was like super nervous because I was like, this is super personal,
Yeah, very
Yeah.
personal.
and I don't, working with like 4 or 3 other business partners, it's like, hey, are you guys going to be into like my personal cool shit that I like,
Exactly.
like putting myself out there in that way. And
Such a cool story and
well,
meaning.
I mean, the best part though is that like everybody was like immediately like, wow, yeah, this like we feel it inside, we
Yeah.
understand,
It resonates with them.
right? And that's like that was the whole intention behind it.
Right.
It's like we've had this name for I don't know 80 years or whatever, and it's
Right.
like been like the thing that we have. And there's all this intentionality and like meaning behind it already. So like if we apply it to something new, like will it have the same? Hopefully. And I think as long as we care about it and like treat it with respect, then yeah, it will.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. I love it.
It definitely reflects. I mean, the tap room, I think it has personality and it's very warm. Like the wood reminds me of like a barn feeling, but just the light in the space and even the
Flowers.
people here have been. We were here a month ago. It showed up on our Google Maps thing.
Yeah.
We had been here before.
Cool.
But yeah, like it does. It just feels very warm and inviting. And so I think you create that personal space. It shines through with your personality, especially the beers you produce.
Thank you, yeah.
We just saw that you guys did your winter beer that had, I don't want to get it wrong, but tangerine and pomegranate.
Yeah,
Is it-
so
okay.
we do a fruited sour for
Saw that. I
for
liked
like
it.
Thanksgiving basically, where it's a pomegranate, tangerine, and cranberry.
It's perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you talk about some of the artwork that you put on the cans? Now
Definitely.
that you've kind of talked about a little bit of y'all's marketing.
Yep, totally. So again, I'll go back to naming beers, right? It's super hard. Like try to come up with a beer name, and probably exists already. So you have to pull a lot from like personal life and personal experience, and and even then, like you kind of strike out on some stuff. And one of the first beers we ever made was called Lost Leaf, and actually we're drinking a variant of it right now. So Lost Leaf is our pale lager. We brew it to be gluten reduced, so that people who are gluten free or gluten sensitive, they can still drink it, but we can't call it gluten free. We get it laboratory tested. It tests below the testable threshold.
Gotcha.
We're using the enzyme to break down the gluten.
Yeah.
The gluten strains in solution.
From the malt.
Yep, exactly. And so the name for that beer came from Zach and Melissa. When they were underage, they've been together for a really long time, since they were teenagers. they went to they were in Arizona for some reason. I can't remember. I'm super bad at like remembering this story, but it's such like a cool, fun story. They were in Arizona and they were looking for a bar to go to underage, and they found this like, they were looking on Yelp or something, like back in the day when that was like, oh sorry, I shouldn't throw shade on Yelp, but I was gonna say when that was relevant. It's still relevant.
No, yeah,
totally, 100%.
When it was just coming out.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Or like, one of those things. Yeah. And so they found this bar called Lost Leaf, and they were like, "Oh, that sounds super cool."
That is cool.
And so they went to this bar, and turns out it was like somebody's like basement bar,
Yeah, it's like a mobile trailer, just like one level home.
Not even. It was literally in the basement of somebody's
Oh,
house.
that's best.
So they loved it so much, that like now they use it for like their Wi-Fi name and like stuff like that at their house.
Oh,
Leaf.
perfect.
Yeah. So that was like one of the first names we came up with, and that was going to be our pale lager. That was one of the first beers we ever brewed. And originally like we thought about like Lost Leaf as like a wayfinder kind of situation, like where's the thing that you're like finding. And then it sort of evolved into more like we think of lagers as like the steadfast thing that we've had in our lives like forever. So what does that mean? Like that's like in terms of like nature, it's like trees, it's like the things around you, and there's like many different varieties, but we still need them and they're important and they matter.
Oh, I love
like,
that.
We kind of take them for granted, right?
Yeah.
And so we started thinking about Lost Leaf as like the thing that we take for granted, that it's just like so delicate and delicious and amazing.
Oh my gosh.
But that's where the name comes from. And then the original artwork was like a compass with a leaf on it, and from there we evolved. From there we evolved it into more of an exploration of like.
I'll take a picture of it for you.
I was just gonna even grab the can. It's still more of an exploration of like what it means to be like lost, but still have that connection. So it's still got the compass on it.
Yeah. Is that top right one?
Yeah, it's the top right one over there.
Yeah. So it's like the like everyone who wonders isn't lost.
Yeah,
kind of
thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You essentially always have a home.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. And so that base recipe became the base recipe for a lot of our lighter lagers. So the lager that we're drinking right now is called Live Laugh Lager.
Oh, love it.
And,
hey, I'm surprised that one was still available.
It was available at the time, and since we've released this beer 3 years ago, there are a million Live Laugh Lagers. I'm not going to sue anybody because I didn't trademark it, but please don't sue me, and also don't trademark it. Let's all use Live Laugh Lager.
We can all live laugh
We can
lager
all
together.
Live Laugh Lager, okay?
Yes.
We can all do it, but
I
I was
love
the
it.
first one because
I love it.
there was not a single check-in on Untapped. I checked, so I have prior art, all right?
Yep.
Anybody listening to this? But anyway, so this Live Laugh Lager that we're drinking right now is this one for us had always been our wet hopped lager, so it was like a kind of like our harvest lager. Right. We're very lucky to have like a pretty high quality hop farm very close to the brewery.
That is
Very
nice.
cool.
Yeah, so like for the past 2 years, we were able to get fresh wet hops from them. Unfortunately, this year they didn't have a great harvest, so we were unable to get wet hops. So we got some. We've been working with a bunch of different like hop growers more recently, and Yakima Quality Hops had some Elani fresh hops available. So like they got picked and shipped to us overnight, and the next day we got them. We like brewed Live Laugh Lager with the Elani wet hops. So it's like,
I love it.
Yeah, it's very like fruity, fruit forward, like pretty classic like American pale lager.
Yeah. Alani is a great hop to use.
Oh yeah.
And it also just shows climate change's a bitch.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. Climate change has messed up everybody.
Oh yeah.
So
Big time.
everybody's saying it's not happening.
Oh,
No,
it's
us in
definitely
this
happening.
industry, it's happening.
Yeah.
Every single year.
I mean, you know what? Tell you right now, I had a meeting yesterday with our maltster. He's also a farmer. He has like a ton of land up in the county, Androscoggin County. So he grows barley and he malts the barley himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, the weather's really changing. We had a great year this year for growing, but our wheat crop just wasn't there. Like we harvested like half of what we thought we would harvest, and the weather is just like crazy right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, hopefully, next year we'll have like decent weather, and they're working really hard on They're working really intense on like biointensive farming. So like regenerative farming practices.
Oh yeah.
Versus like using chemicals. You know, he had the best way to describe it when we were like hanging out yesterday. He's like, you know, I'm tired of fighting fire with fire. Like I'm tired of just like you know, my field's on fire and I'm throwing pesticides and other stuff on top of it to just light it on fire more. He's like, I'd much rather fight fire with water. And so he said like this year is the first year that they've gone to putting cover crop on all the fields like for the winter because it's expensive. You know, it's a cost that they otherwise wouldn't have had. But you know, next year if they get better yield out of it, then it makes up for it.
Absolutely.
Know? It's stuff like
so
researching like types of fungus they can like inoculate the soil with, so that next year when they go to grow all the barley, will it be potentially more resilient to other types of fungus because it's been exposed to this already.
Yeah.
And not only that, but that fungus breaks down and then feeds the soil at the same time.
So
you're essentially growing a crop. I'm not trying to
No,
explain.
I know.
This has been my YouTube deep dive. For some reason, my algorithm has given me all this reinvestment in like biofarming.
Oh yeah.
You essentially plant cover crop that you won't harvest or yield anything from, but the whole point is that it lives and dies and then helps replenish and refill the soil for the crop that you will harvest and sell next year has a better opportunity for better growth.
Yeah. My mom's a master gardener. I know a few things.
Oh,
there you go.
Wasn't saying.
Yeah, there you go.
But
Hey, don't mansplain her.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
No. Well, we haven't talked about that, which is
okay.
funny.
All right.
I've seen her mom's worm bucket.
She grows her own worms. I'm not going to say the thing I normally say. But I mean, that's one. Not only do we want to talk to people about their story, about their craft beer, tap room and business and what they're putting out in the world. Like, we also want to talk to like the people who are like making those ingredients.
Oh yeah,
and so like that's so wild to like hear a portion of that story.
Oh yeah.
And, like,
well, and you know, again, it's like important because. And we got onto this because we were talking about art and beer names, right?
Love it.
But it's like that stuff is important because it informs the end result, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, like, again, you know, is it a function of opening during the pandemic? Probably. But, you know, when I grew up around a ton of farms. Like, we were like a very, very farm-heavy community. You know, that's where I learned to drive a stick shift for the first time was in the cornfield, right? Yeah. And it's gone now. It's just gone. Yeah. Like, because Connecticut is like, you know, they need more houses, and you know, we all need places to live, but you know, we also need to eat. Yes. And so, like, one of my own personal priorities is like focusing on using as many, you know, local ingredients as we possibly could. And I tell you right now, like 90% of the malt that we use is grown in Maine, malted in Maine, and then made into beer in Maine. Like, I can drive to the farm if I need to like pick up the malt that we turn into beer
That's
if
awesome.
I need to. And you know, there's not a lot of places. There's like a handful of breweries in this country that can honestly say that that's what they do.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
You're creating that connection to something that's so intimately tied, not just to your business itself, which is such a paradox in kind of where we live. Yeah. We love Whole Foods, and we think that Whole Foods is great and good, but even for all their plaques that say like this is the farm that comes, it comes from it. You don't do much research after that, but the things that you do invest in like this, you're giving people the education and opportunity to understand where it's like we don't survive simply on our own. Like, we require like 8 to 12 different things for us to survive, and you need to have just as much care about our beer as you care about these other things as well.
Oh, 100%. And again, that's like how you end up like taking the tangent from talking about the names and the beer art to the porters, you know, Porter Farms. One time, like, their whole family is here in the tap room, and they're like, "My granddad grows your grain." I'm like, "I know, thank you. I've met him. I've shook his hand. I had dinner with him. It was great."
I love that.
That's so cool.
That is so cool, because I think as a craft, we don't own a craft beer tap room or brewery at all, but like being able to buy beer where we know that like you've met and been out to and understand and know, like, I think that's even cooler. Like, I mean, it's really easy to probably buy malt from places and have it shipped in and whatnot, but to not only like support local as you're drinking the beer, but supporting local to like support those farmers as well, I think that's even cooler.
It explains the price tag. And your
Yeah.
beer's not overly priced
Yeah.
whatsoever. We're just in this day and age now where
Oh,
two
yeah,
beers
yeah.
will cost you about $20 to $23.
Right. Yeah.
And that if it was at a farmer's market, people would be
Yeah.
more inclined to be like, oh, I understand. But
Right,
when
right,
people
right.
walk into a brewery, sometimes they're like, why is the beer $9 a pint?
Yeah.
And when you start to explain
Yeah.
that we've been buying local grain from this farmer,
Yeah.
this maltster, that their family farm's been in business for 300 years,
Yeah.
that provides like a
Super.
profound significance.
Oh yeah.
So with that, we'll tie this into our last two questions.
Yeah.
So going forward with this in mind, with your tie to, I'd say, community and local ingredients, where does Belleflower look to grow at?
That's a tough question. We talked about it a little bit before. That's a tough question, and we talked about it a little bit before we even started like talking. On the mics. It's tough to say like what the future is going to hold because we're in a very like strange place right now with the industry. There's a lot of, I'm not gonna name any names, but there's a lot of consolidation happening right now. I think, at least that's my perception from talking to other brewery owners and stuff and things like that. And I have a feeling that a lot of like the brands that you've seen that like you've looked to for the past 10 years that have been like, oh my God, I love XYZ. They're probably not going to be made in the same place or by the same people anymore for very much longer, if I had to guess. And it's all going to get consolidated to like much larger houses, which is a bummer because like, you're going to lose a lot of like all the stuff we've been talking about, like all the passion, the craft, the creativity. And if I had to like diagnose that, I think people are just tired of fighting for space and whatever, and they just want to like get out at this point. When I say people, I mean brewery owners.
Yeah.
And that's really sad to me because like, my peers are people who I like deeply respect and admire, and who are people who have basically like set the model for me and for other people like us. So when I think about expansion for us specifically, like it's definitely in a purpose-built production space where we can do the types of stuff at the quality that we want to do more easily for the team. And that's the biggest thing. Like, we do a lot of like fruited sours and like really hoppy beers and stuff like that. And there's like there's a human toll on making those kinds of beers.
Yeah.
Yep.
And for the most part, Zach and I, we recognize that, and we try to take that stuff on ourselves. When I say there's a human toll for those specific types of beers, it's because of the amount of like raw material that goes into it. Putting 30 boxes of fruit into a tank 15 feet in the air when you don't have space to put a lift in is hard because you got to climb up the ladder with that 45-pound box.
Yeah.
And then you got to hold it over your head and like dump it into the tank.
And you
That's
gotta
why
do
we
that
do yoga.
Yeah.
15 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, we do it like 24 to 35 times.
Yeah.
Do y'all do yoga?
Oh, so Zach and I,
Y'all have yoga Fridays or something?
so the joke, one of our production employees, she's awesome. She jokes, I can't work for the Gym Bro Brewery. I just can't do it. But like Zach and I, we go to the gym and we lift as much as we can, just to like get as strong as we can. And we provide like snacks and stuff to the team.
Love
And
it.
in the break room, there's like a huge bag of protein powder, and we always have like
Love
a million protein bars.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like you gotta get your
just
gains
gotta
in.
Stay. Like I think that I don't think it doesn't like.
More about gains, it's energy.
It's
Right.
just,
Like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
burning more calories in
yeah.
a brewery than
Yeah.
anything. It's
Yeah, like
crazy.
Sometimes I'll like. Yesterday was a good day, not today so far because I've just been sitting here talking. But that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll like show my wife my like Apple Watch move, and she'll be like, "How did you do that? Like
I brewed a beer.
you lapped all your rings
Yeah.
except for your stand ring because that's
What?
like only once an hour."
When I worked at Fort George Brewing, because we had this giant, it's a beautiful facility. But it's like a 90,000 square foot cannery with like 7 separate hangars.
Oh, yeah.
Ridiculous.
But I would walk like 20,000 plus steps
Oh, yeah.
a day.
Easily.
And I worked 410, so it's like
Yeah.
I was doing almost 100,000 steps
Oh,
in
yeah.
4 days.
Yeah.
Some days when I didn't want to walk, I'd bring my longboard in to do like fermentation checks.
Yeah,
And like longboard in between tanks, longboard to the lab and do my stuff. But
Oh, yeah.
it was
But,
intense.
I mean, brewers like you gotta if you want to do this long term, like you got to take care of your body.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
like-
do not be a broken brewer at like late
Yeah.
30s.
Oh,
I'm
no way.
32 and I'm already feeling a bunch of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
He's
oh
like,
yeah, if I don't do it
yeah.
now, I'm going to be fucked when I'm like 38.
I appreciate as a person who helps feed a brewer whenever you're working at a brewery.
Yeah.
I appreciate that y'all have
Oh yeah,
protein powder
Have to,
and like
yeah.
all this stuff. Like y'all go lift weights. Like I think y'all are in the like 1%
Trying really hard.
of
Oh, yeah.
brewers who probably do
Provide snacks.
Trying really hard.
Brewers are always hungry.
Yeah, we make a joke. We have the Diet Coke hour. It's like usually around 2:30, 2 o'clock actually. We're at the Diet Coke hour right
Diet
now.
Coke,
We're
yeah,
going,
yeah,
like
yeah,
crack a
Diet
Diet Coke. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, love it. Well,
I love it so
usually,
much.
now we usually finish up with our last
We
question.
do have one last question, but was there anything? I feel like there was a couple of things that there was one thing you wanted to talk about, maybe the IPA.
Oh yeah,
or
I mean
the,
whatever. Yeah. I mean I
No,
could talk
please do.
about.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't miss that.
Oh, sure, yeah.
IPA that we had earlier, and then like
Totally.
what went into it.
Yeah. So I'll talk about just in general our like our our approach to like hoppy beer, because I feel like it's a little bit unique. I don't know. I mean, there's like
It tastes fabulous.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah, I
really
loved
appreciate
it.
that.
Yeah.
So like from a baseline, like what we're trying to do when we design these hoppy beers, especially, is we usually start from like what we expect the end result to be. So like we drank a beer earlier today called Same as It Never Was. And so the reason we named
Love
it,
the name.
yeah, right. The
Great.
reason we named it Same as It Never Was is because we're essentially doing the same process, right? We're making an IPA, we're making a hazy IPA. Between Zach and I, it's like millions of gallons of hazy IPA at this
Yeah.
point. And the rest of the production team too. I don't mean to just like isolate our experiences because they have just as much as we do. But we've got access now to all these like really interesting and cool like advanced hop products. And so for Same as It Never Was, like we got approached by the Haas hop growing company to do a collab with them because they have a new product. They make this product called Incognito. It is it's basically like a liquid extract of the like an aroma extract of whatever hop variety that they do the extraction for.
Okay.
And so in their breeding program, they have a newer variety called HBC 1019. It's a sibling or a daughter of Sabro. So it's very like I don't want to say like 100% coconut forward. I think it's more like sweet fruit and coconut
Yeah.
kind of forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sabro was always traditionally known for like strawberry coconut and then
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
minty, but
Yeah.
I've always loved Sabro.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people perceive it as like almost tasting like sunscreen.
Yes.
It's got sort of that like reputation, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I think this is Haas's attempt at removing some of the like sunscreen from the genetics of the plant
Mhm.
and replacing it more with like sweet fruit.
Yeah.
Again, that's my perception.
Yeah.
No, it's great.
Yeah. So they approached us to like make this beer featuring this ingredient. We're like, oh, awesome! Like
Yeah.
we love.
Sounds amazing.
We've used 1019 like a bunch in a few different beers, but the cool thing was we had this like we're like sitting there. We're like thinking like, okay, what can we do? And then somebody, I can't remember who it was. Somebody was like, let's just make like a pina colada beer. And I was like, oh yeah, great.
Sounds perfect.
awesome.
Let's definitely do that. Like in the fall.
And the fall in
Fall in New
Maine,
England, yeah.
it's perfect.
But you know what? Like it was a great challenge, and like we had the
Yeah.
opportunity, so I was like, let's do it.
it was amazing.
Yeah. So when we were sitting down designing the recipe, I'm pretty sure it was Ian, who's our brewing operations manager. He was like, "What if we like pair this with Brew One, which is traditionally more like a very pineapple forward hop that we use.
okay.
We use in like." It's easy to go overboard with Brew One because like you just think it's going to be like a pineapple bomb, but what ends up happening is like it provides this like very strange like astringency, almost like sweet astringency that isn't too desirable. But when you use it in like small quantities and paired with something that's going to pair well with it, it's amazing. So it's like it's one of the base hops for our flagship IPA, Scrugsy.
Oh, nice.
It's Enigma and Brew One. So we thought, okay, let's use 1019, HBC 1019, and Brew One together to like make this like very. Cause the end result we're looking for like pineapple, coconut, sweet
Yeah.
fruit, XYZ, and then we back the whole recipe into that, right?
Yeah.
And so for this one, we did pretty much our traditional process for making like a hazy IPA recipe, and then on the hot side and the dry hop side, we use way more incognito, which is like it literally comes as like a paste or a liquid almost. We use way more of that than we've ever used before. So we used an entire kilogram.
Damn.
In a 10-barrel batch, a 20-barrel batch. So half a kilogram went into the whirlpool of the first turn, and then the second turn we used the second half of the kilogram. And then when we dry hop the beer, Haas also makes this product called Lupomax, which is kind of like cryo. Again, like I'm a crazy person, and I'm very like tuned in on my like sensory perception.
Yep.
So to me, the difference between cryo and Lupomax comes down to mouthfeel, which is very strange to say. So my opinion, like cryo ends up almost like having this like gritty sensation to the beer.
We've always said grainy.
Grainy, yeah.
Like sand.
Yeah, a little bit like sandy, and Lupomax is a lot. It's less the intensity is less than you get out of like a cryo product. So like in terms of like intensity of like hop character, hop flavor. I would maybe give it to cryo, but also like it detracts when you like have that like mouth feel, that mouth sensation.
Yeah.
In Lupomax, you get a similar level of intensity from the hops, but the drinkability is like the mouthfeel.
Smooth.
Yeah, it's so much easier to like drink.
It was a lot smoother.
Yeah, the Lupomax I think does it better with the dissolvable oils and how it goes into liquid. I think the cryo, there's just so much like probably plant matter and protein and still binds to that it doesn't break down.
Exactly, dude. Yeah, you nailed it on the head, like right there. And like sitting down, like conceptualizing and tasting two things like side by side, where you're drinking something that I know I put like X amount of cryo into, and I know I put X amount of Lupomax into. You can taste the difference, like 100%.
So the Lupomax is what y'all use, and that's the new product that they're
specifically
with.
for 1019.
For 1019.
So we did that, and we did Lupomax for Brew 1 as well. Mm-hmm. And like the depth and intensity of like the hop character is just like way more than we could ever get with traditional T90 hops.
So cool.
Yeah. Honestly,
it was amazing.
Honestly, drinking it reminds you of like when you dry hop, and usually when you usually put your first bags in.
Yeah.
It has a re-fermentation, so you let it blow off. But then when you open that hop port again with your CO2 bubbling, you usually get that smell.
Yeah,
that smell is like dry hop smell.
Yeah.
That's what it smelled like, but it didn't have any bit of that grittiness or graininess attached to it.
I think that's why.
And it was super smooth.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's like peach rings, apricot. It was so lovely.
Thank you, man.
The hazy IPAs, I've always I'm like, this is great. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, but that one was a lot more drinkable for me, and it probably was because of that, because it felt more smooth than the other.
Especially being on the West Coast, the West Coast can kind of be curmudgeons, where they're like, if you're going to do something that is dry hopped, you don't use these other products because it's you're not using actual flour, so you're like bastardizing the process. But people don't realize then people get allergies, all these other reactions that happen with it.
I had the worst sinus. I usually if I drink a lot,
you get a stuffy nose. Same thing happens to me sometimes. Like my nose starts running.
So you nailed it.
I love
you nailed it really well.
That's so cool.
And so extrapolate that that thought process out to like the rest of the portfolio. That's
exactly.
That's how we look at beers. And again,
it's your approach.
Yeah, and I think cryo absolutely has a place in like the the types of beers that we make specifically, and we use a lot of cryo hops, like a lot of cryo hops. But I think that for that one in particular, we just hit all the right notes,
So
it was just so good.
Because the pina colada, what you said, it was like a pina colada, you just want to drink.
Just go so easy.
You just slurp it through a straw. And that felt like you could do that.
Yeah, the drinkability.
And that's one thing. Again, I hate to. I sound like a broken record, but when we look at our double IPAs, it's like when we first opened, we didn't put out a double IPA because we were very intimidated by it. We were like, okay, people are going to expect a lot out of a double IPA from the two guys that worked at Trillium for a while,
Yeah.
And it was definitely a very self-conscious thing. But the first double IPA we did was Barn Hacks to honor the Barn Hacks. And since then we've honed this craft now with the double IPAs. Where like, you take a sip of it and you're like, somebody says like, oh, what's the ABV on this? And you're like, oh, it's 8.5, and they're like, no way. I'm like, no, it's 8.5%.
The drinkability is scary.
Yeah,
It's a little scary.
We had it when we
Yeah.
were here a month ago.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it's
Yeah.
one of those things where, like, even me, knowing everything that goes into these, we make this beer called Into the Kaleidoscope, and I brought a 4-pack of it home. It's our top-rated double IPA, and I'm like, I cracked I had drank one can. I'm like making dinner. I like crack another can. I'm making dinner, and then I'm like, I'm drunk all of a sudden. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening right now? And I'm like, oh yeah,
This
right.
is my
I'm
own
drinking
beer.
a double IPA. Okay.
Yeah.
8.5%.
But that's responsible.
Yeah.
And I also would say that's also a great note to like have of being it is deceptively good for how big it is.
Right.
Because usually that is the biggest worry for even any new drinker, especially coming into the winter season.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anything dark, people are like, well, how much is the ABV? And when you can make something that is deceptively drinkable, and you're also not trying to be like, oh, it's 6%. You're like, no, this is like an 8.5% Doppelbock, but it drinks like coffee, molasses, chocolate. Like it's going to be great.
Yeah.
That I think that's like a testament to how well you guys do things.
Yeah. Well, again, it speaks to the craft and like the care
Yeah.
and recipe development. Again, that goes to the whole team. Yeah, ingredients. Yeah, 100%.
Everything.
Yeah.
There's so much more behind just the one beer that you're drinking, and I love that so much.
Yeah.
And we do have a Doppelbock in the tank right now, by the way.
Yes.
Who makes a Doppelbock in 2024?
Thank
I
you.
don't
Y'all
know.
do. We will
don't
be
know.
here for it. We'll be here for it. Okay, we have 2 more questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
Hit
have
me.
gone long, and I don't even care.
That's
No.
fine by me.
It's amazing. Our 2 questions. First one.
Yep.
Anything that you're excited about
Okay.
that you want to like promote coming up?
Yep.
Hint, hint. Your last Friday that
Yep,
we talked
yep.
about earlier.
Yep. Yeah. So we do like a lot of really cool and fun events. Like it's I feels like borderline arrogance to like say that, but at the same time, like they're always like so fun. And again, it goes to the team who organizes and plans it and executes this stuff. And so what we've been doing for like the past 2 years is like a last Friday of the year. We have like a big party here in the tap room, and we try to like release a couple new beers. Even though it's like the end of December and we go into dry January, we still try to release some new beers to like make it exciting.
The last hurrah.
Yeah, exactly. Last hurrah of the year. So we try to always do like a new fruited sour for that. Just because like why not?
Why not?
Yeah, we're going into the winter and we all need like our vitamin C.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
we'll have a new fruited sour for that, and then I think we're gonna have another new release for that party this year, but I'm gonna keep that one quiet.
Keep that one quiet. You'll have to stay tuned.
Yep. and then the other thing is like we this time of year we always like dip into our stash of barrels to release a couple barrel aged stouts.
Yes.
So we have one in the tank right now that we're going to package next week, just in time for. Sorry, I won't date this. We have one in the tank right now that we're going to package and release, in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
It's going to be a replay of, I think, our highest rated stout that we've ever released before.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's like
Can or bottle format?
bottle format.
Bottle format.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like the beer is actually out at the lab right now getting tested for ABV because it's been sitting in Elijah Craig barrels for 2 years.
What?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
wonderful.
Were y'all even open into?
Oh yeah. We've been open 4 years now.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry. I got my
No, it's
time.
okay.
We're in 2024.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're all good.
No, yeah. But it's been sitting in these these really really nice Elijah Craig barrels for 2 years, and we tried it last week and decided we had to move on it. So
Love it.
that's hitting the adjuncts now, and
Nice.
Stay
so we'll
tuned
package
for
that.
that.
Yep, and then we have one.
So
other,
follow Belleflower Brewing to see
at
possible-
Belleflower Beer.
At Belleflower Beer,
Yep,
sorry.
there you go.
At Belleflower Beer to see what
Yep.
they're
We'll
going to
tag
put
y'all
into this
too.
Yeah, cool.
Elijah Craig stout.
Yep, and then there's one other mixed fermentation beer that we release usually in the spring, but we had a really unexpected, very, very good batch of mixed fermented lager that we've been working on for about almost a year and a half at this point.
Okay.
So we're going to release that pretty soon as well.
Okay.
So there you go.
Awesome.
Exciting. Lots
lot
of
of
new
cool
beer.
stuff, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Lots of cool things.
Perfect
Always
time.
be making new stuff.
Perfect
right?
time for everybody to just go back to their hole and just sit,
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
hibernate, take care of yourself.
Yep.
Love that so much. Last question. If you were to give your younger self a piece of advice, we ask this to everybody. If you were to give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't buy that pizza with that 100 Bitcoin that you had. Seriously, dude.
You bought pizza with 100 Bitcoin?
Okay. Don't get rid of the Bitcoin, dude, because that stuff is going to be actually worth something one day.
Holy shit.
So you bought pizza with Bitcoin?
There was a point in my life where I had hundreds.
Bitcoin. And it could have been much worth
it. A lot. And I'm pretty sure I lost a bunch in like a hard drive that I just like threw away one day because I was like, this is worthless. That's
what then you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Honestly, I probably still would be.
Oh, okay.
You would be just in a better financial situation.
Yeah. I just like wouldn't have to worry about anything.
Let's hope there's a Rick and Morty situation where you can go
probably
back.
No.
Okay.
But whatever.
Hold on to the Bitcoin.
Yeah. But no, I mean, like truthfully, like I don't know. It's hard to when you look back and like you think about like, oh, what would I have changed? Honestly, I wouldn't have changed anything because like my life and my process led to this, and this is like one of the more meaningful things that I've ever done with my life and my creativity, and it means a lot. So there you go.
Love it.
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah, right?
Love
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
Yeah.
So still do that Bitcoin for that pizza.
Yeah, I guess so. Why not?
Why not?
Nobody gets off easy, right?
For sure. Well, thank
Unless
you
your
so
name's
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
guys.
much,
Oh, this
Nick.
was such a
Appreciate it.
fucking blast.
Hell yeah.
Cheers, friends.
Cheers.